if you've just taken up astronomy, a good idea would be to get a simple software program. I'm using one here called SkyMap, and it's on an old PC, but basically you can set your location. I've set mine for the UK where I live, which is at a latitude of about 52 degrees north. It's over 1 degree west of Greenwich Mean Time, and it's winter time, and the clocks have gone back, so I've put in the calculations for that, and it'll show me what's in the sky at the moment. It's very cloudy where I am at the moment, but the point is it doesn't matter if it's cloudy. With astronomy you can be learning when it's cloudy. So what I should be seeing if I'm looking up into the sky, this is the view from the south, is that it looks as if Gemini will be very high in the sky. That's this very squarish, oblong constellation there. And also moving east of that, there's another constellation called Cancer and Leo there. And the orientation of these maps, it will tell you, you can choose which way you want the middle of them to point. In this case, I'm wanting the south, which is this line in the middle. I'm wanting this, that's the meridian line. It's known as the meridian line. And that's what's crossing the meridian at the moment, constellation-wise. And it's good to sort of familiarise yourself with the names of these ancient constellations. When you look in the sky, it can be very confusing. Obviously, if you see this particular constellation here, which is the Orion or the Hunter, that's very distinctive with the belt and of course his scabbard for his sword, and then he's got this strange star at the top called Betelgeuse, which is basically a very unstable red giant. And then there's another sort of star in Taurus, Aldebaran, which is called a very red star. And it's basically the shape to grab you first. So before you start looking with optical aids, I would say get yourself familiar with a basic star map. Start playing around with the controls and learning how the sky moves around you depending on your position on Earth viewing in space. Here we have what's in the sky, but during the daytime, so this will be afternoon, tomorrow afternoon. And although you can't see stars during the daytime unless there's a total eclipse, it's worth learning what actually really is in the sky, because they are actually up there, but just that the light of the sun, which is such a high brightness, is actually blotting out what you can see. But on my little planetarium here, my software program here, you should be able to see that this is where the sun is in the afternoon here, and the sun will actually be in a constellation known as Capricorn, and the sun travels along an imaginary line in the sky called the ecliptic. And the signs of the zodiac, there's Capricorn there, which is to the west. As I move east on my star map here, the next constellation is Aquarius. Then you've got Pisces here, the fish, which is like a shoulder fish. And also within Pisces, you'll see the moon's there. There's the moon there in Pisces. Okay? And the idea is that if you use one of these software programs, you get familiar. And also there's a whole cluster of planets around. There's Neptune, I think, Mars. The one next to Mars there, that symbol would be Venus. So you've got Mars with the arrow and then Venus. Okay? And you can actually highlight each planet that you want to have a look at to identify exactly what it is, and it'll tell you. So it's good to have a look at and then to learn what is out there. And along the ecliptic, which is an imaginary circle in the sky, and the height of the ecliptic varies according to the season, and that's where the sun travels along. The sun appears to travel along this great circle. It takes a year to travel through all of the constellations of the signs of the zodiac, and the month on which you're born, your star sign is related to where the sun would be relative. So if your birth sign, say, was Pisces, that means that when you were born, the sun, when it rose in the sky, was actually travelling through that constellation. But you wouldn't be able to see the constellation because it would be in the sky, and the sun would appear to be travelling against those background stars in the sky during the daytime. So that's how that works. Here's my information about the moon tomorrow afternoon, and it's just before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It will be travelling in the constellation Pisces, almost in the constellation Pisces, and if you had a telescope, that's the coordinates. You'd have to dial up the right ascension and declination. These are coordinates which you can program on your telescope. Some people can do this digitally, mine doesn't. You have to set the circles correctly, and it tells you the distance of the moon in kilometres from us at the time, and it's coming out as 373,238.1 kilometres. That's the moon, and it gives you a phase of the moon as well. So it's still a crescent tomorrow, okay? And that's what's useful about these little software programs. So you know the day before what's going to be in the sky, and you can look out for it. And even though you can't see these stars, because as you can see that's the sun there in Capricorn, you know that once the sun is set, what's going to be there immediately after the sun has set and the stars start coming out. That planet there is Neptune. Neptune's in Aquarius. If you have a large telescope or a powerful pair of binoculars and you want to see what's known as Messier objects, these are deep sky objects, you can also use these planetariums to have a look at where they will be in the sky, and you can click on these. This is a very basic program, and this gives you, I could click on these and it will tell me exactly where they are in the sky. It tells me what constellations they are around, and it gives you an idea of how to find them. So the idea is, with a program like this, you can have cameras which are attached to your computer, for instance web cameras, and you can use these star maps, and then you can actually compare what you see on your computer with what's coming through from telescope. But I would advise against that if you're starting on astronomy, basically because you need to know your way around the sky and to know the names of some of the constellations. Okay? Here I've put up these dotted lines to show the borders between the constellations, and you'll see that each one of them has its own unique area in the sky which has been delineated, and they have some quite strange names such as Vol, Pekka, etc. And here on mine they have quite Latin names, and there's one there which is called Cygnus. That is the swan. That's very high up in the sky during the summer months, and that's quite a prominent constellation, Cygnus the swan. And you'll also notice when you watch constellations that the way that they're viewed in the sky, because of how they wheel around the sky, appear to wheel around you because the Earth itself is turning in space and also going in an orbit around the sun, that the actual angle at which you view them will be different. Okay? So here we have obviously a daytime sky. You can't see these at night time, but it's worth knowing where they are and what's actually going on in the sky itself, because 6 months later, although this is in daytime, this particular sky will not be this particular view angle you're looking at will not be always the same, because the stars themselves will appear to rise 4 minutes earlier every day, when I'll explain why later in my video. Here we have the sky tomorrow, which is the 2nd of February, at around 9:30 in the evening. I've also made allowances for the fact that the clocks have gone back, and you can see I've actually put the little green symbols in there for the Messier or deep sky objects, and I've put little board lines around the constellation. So prominent, you've got Orion obviously, and it's got, and I could click on the Messier object in that if I wanted to, and you've got Taurus there. There's Orion there, and you can see that he's got his hunter's bow there, and you've got above Orion Taurus, okay, and Gemini, which I mentioned earlier, and it's got a Messier objects there, and there's got another constellation here which is called Auriga, which is very prominent. Heading east, then of course you've got other constellations along the actual imaginary line, the ecliptic, which the sun and planets and of course the zodiacal constellations are seen along, and there's Cancer, okay, and then Leo is becoming very prominent there, and quite a few deep sky objects there within Leo. It shows you where a few are. The beauty of this sky map is it's not too detailed. It only goes down to what's known as magnitude 5, and your eye can see down to about magnitude 6, and the magnitude scale works so that the higher the number, the fainter the object, and it's reckoned that I can distinguish the classification system based on this. Accurately, one magnitude is about just over 2.5 times difference in brightness, so it's logarithmic. So 2 magnitude difference will be 2.51 times 2.51. So you can work it out. Basically what happens is the 2.512, the exact number, to the power of 5 equals 100. So there's 100 times brightness difference between a star which is very bright, such as Sirius, which is in Canis Major. There's Sirius there, which is the brightest star in Canis Major, which is the dog star, and a star which is only magnitude 6, say a fainter star, which might be seen in another constellation, like say Cancer, which is on the ecliptic at the moment. If you want to see more detail, you can actually change the settings so that you can see, say, more Messier objects, and looking to the very far east there's a constellation known there as Coma Berenices, and above that you've got Canis Venatici and Ursa Major, which is, as you would more commonly call it, the plough. And you can see where the plough is and the orientation of the plough. And the plough itself appears to move around the actual pole star, or where the North Celestial Pole is not. The actual pole star is not exactly there, but the orientation of the plough changes over the course of the night. It's always, where I live in the UK, it's always above the horizon. It's just that the actual geometry of the appearance of where it is, it goes around, and you'll see that it has a different orientation in the sky depending on the position of the stars at the time when you observe. So it's almost like a clock face, really, going around, constantly circulating around the pole star. And there's a whole host of constellations up at this particular time tomorrow evening if the sky was clear. And if you look at the line that says 180, that's what's in the south, or on the meridian line. Okay, and you can change the orientation of this map however you wish. What I like about this is very simple and very concise way of shrinking everything down to make something which is as complicated as astronomy basic, so that you can start with this and look for these in the sky. You can even print this little map out if you want to, and away you go. You can compare what you see with the actual sky up there itself.